Tucker Carlson finally addressed the Friday revelation that his head writer was about as big and outspoken a racist as anyone could possibly imagine, or at least he sort of addressed it. Take a look at the slightly more than 1 minute he spent dealing with this.
Over the weekend, you may have seen stories about a writer on this show called Blake Neff. For years, since he was in college, Blake posted anonymously on an internet message board for law school students. On Friday, many of those posts became public. Blake was horrified by the story and he was ashamed. Friday afternoon, he resigned from his job. We want to say a couple of things about this. First, what Blake wrote anonymously was wrong. We don't endorse those words. They have no connection to the show. It is wrong to attack people for qualities they cannot control. In this country, we judge people for what they do, not for how they were born. We often say that because we mean it. We'll continue to defend that principle, often alone among national news programs, because it is essential. Nothing is more important. Blake fell short of that standard, and he has paid a very heavy price for it. But we should also point out to the ghouls now beating their chests in triumph at the destruction of a young man that self-righteousness also has its costs. We are all human. When we pretend we are holy, we are lying. When we pose as blameless in order to hurt other people, we are committing the gravest sin of all, and we will be punished for it. There's no question.
Cenk, before we launch into analysis of that, and there's certainly a lot there to delve into, let's play a quick game. Based purely on what he just said right there, not what you already know from reading the reporting and all of that, what did Blake Neff write?
Well, John, not only did he write, fairly benign, middle of the road stuff, he seems to have written it a long time ago in college or something like that.
It seems like, yeah, when he was in college for years, I don't know. You could watch that entire thing and have no clue whatsoever what this guy did. And that's by design.
So in reality, of course, he wrote, as Fox News described it, horrifically racist material. Also bigoted, homophobic, and sexist. And he didn't do it just back in college. He did it up until now. He wrote viciously racist things about George Floyd, showing no sympathy and calling him a career criminal based on what information I don't know. He called black people pets. But he attacked Asians, he attacked everyone. He attacked individual women and had these group of vicious racists and sexist target her. I mean, this guy is the worst of the worst, the most toxic guy you could imagine based on his writings. And I did a long video about it yesterday. You should check that out for some of the quotes. And the other part that Tucker doesn't mention, John, is that to the best of my knowledge, publicly, Blake Neff has never even apologized. So he makes it seem like, oh, this guy from like 38 years ago said something, couple of things, and now, hey, who would be sympathetic to that? I would be sympathetic to that if the guy had changed. He's not at all changed. He's still a vicious racist.
No, hold on, Cenk. Now, Tucker said he's ashamed, okay? Now, he could be ashamed about one of two things. About what he wrote and then changed in the last 2 weeks, or that he got caught. It's one of those two things. I don't know which.
Yeah, it used the N-word throughout. He just does every racist thing you can imagine, has never apologized. And if you notice, Tucker Carlson said, to John's point, that Neff was horrified by the story. Not horrified by what he said, but by the fact that the story came out. That was his head writer. That was Tucker basically saying, we were doing a terrific job of covering up our racism. Now we're horrified that people found out. Now he's fired. I might even be fired. We'll get to that in a second. And so we're horrified. God, we had a good racket going.
Yeah.
And then he says there's no connection to the show. If you read the original CNN piece, you'll see quotes where you take out the N-word or take out another racist word, and it goes right into Tucker Carlson's script. And the guy brags about it, about like, hey, I write the scripts, ha ha ha, right? And then Tucker there in the worst non-apology I've ever seen in my life, claimed that his show alone is the one fighting against racism. No other show is, but Tucker's is. No, they just flip the truth on its head, and they do it all the time. They're absolutely Orwellian.
Obviously, there's no apology from Blake Neff that's referenced there. But what about Tucker's apology for having a vicious racist as his head writer? Oh wait, that wasn't there either. Oh, there was nothing. There was literally nothing there. It's amazing. He spoke for 1:17, made himself out to be the victim and superior to all of the people who presumably don't have N-word throwing racists as their head writers, and then implied that the guy had been mistreated, that his life has now been destroyed. But with all of what we've said, understand all of that, he is now facing the most severe consequences a Fox News host can for being involved with vicious racism. He gets to take a vacation. Let's watch.
Well, we're out of time. Gonna spend the next 4 days trout fishing. Long planned. This is one of those years where if you don't get it in now, you're probably not going to. If something dramatic happens, of course, we'll be back. We've got some tape segments for you. Brian Kilmeade will be sitting in. But in the meantime, we hope you have the best and happiest week, and we'll be back on Monday, if not before, 8 p.m. Eastern, the show that is the sworn and totally sincere enemy of lying, pomposity, smugness, and groupthink.
Strikes me as a big fisher.
Yeah. All right, before we get into the substance of it, God, he can't, every sentence has to include something Orwellian. Tucker Carlson is against pomposity and smugness. He's the definition of pomposity and smugness. He wore a bow tie on Earth and said, "I do declare," for about 2 decades. That was his shtick, that he was a pompous, smug ass. And he still is. And he says, "Well, we are the sworn enemy of the pompous. We have declared war, Emily. Can't believe this. All right, now out of the vacation. Yeah, a lot of people.
Long planned.
No, John, to be fair, a lot of people plan vacations starting on a Tuesday, right after a giant controversy surrounding them. Well, it happens all the time. Actually, on Fox News, it kind of does, doesn't it, John?
Yeah, well, why don't we go to a couple examples we've been able to find.
But the whole thing is a lie. If you were to assemble a list, a hierarchy of concerns, of problems this country faces, where would white supremacy be on the list? Right up there with Russia, probably. It's actually not a real problem in America. The combined membership of every white supremacist organization in this country, would they be able to fit inside a college football stadium? I mean, seriously. This is a country where the average person is getting poorer, where the suicide rate is spiking. White supremacy, that's the problem. This is a hoax. Just like the Russia hoax. It's a conspiracy theory used to divide the country and keep a hold on power. That's exactly what's going on. That's it for us tonight. Tune in every night, 8 p.m. to the show that is the sworn enemy of lying, pomposity, and smugness and groupthink. By the way, I am taking several days off, headed to the wilderness to fish with my son, catch some brook trout. Politics is important. Fishing with your son sometimes more important, so I'm doing it.
That is all the time we have tonight on this special edition of the Ingram Angle. A blessed Good Friday and Passover to all of you. I'll be off next week for Easter break with my kids, but fear not.
This time of year, I grabbed some vacation because it's spring and Easter time. Last fall, I booked a trip that should be terrific. I'll have a full report when I return.
So yeah, we've noticed a correlation where sudden vacations seem to come about when you imply that white supremacy is a totally made up fiction of people's imagination, when you get involved in bizarre feuds with the survivors of mass shootings, and when you sexually harass multiple women. So it's usually tied to one of those things.
Every single one of those clips. That's why we did the setup for you guys in the Tucker Carlson one. Every single one of those clips is after a massive controversy, the ones John just described, where the Fox News host said all of a sudden they realized they had, I had forgotten this fishing trip. As advertisers flee, Sean Hannity takes a sudden vacation. That's 4 for 4. Fox News host Laura Ingraham goes on vacation as more advertisers dump her over Parkland tweet. So what this is, guys, is here we go. April 11th, 2017, amid a sexual harassment scandal and advertiser boycott, Bill O'Reilly went on vacation too. He also swore up and down that he'd be back when the trip was over. Just over a week later, he was fired. Bill O'Reilly, as it turns out, still fishing. Oh, previously planned firing, I mean fishing. Okay, so guys, bottom line on this is what's happening at Fox News right now. Number one, they're doing two things. One is a well-worn strategy, as you just saw there, of, hey, let's give the news cycle a couple of days, and Trump will say 28 crazy, insane things by then, and you'll forget how racist Tucker Carlson and his head writer are, and we'll move on. And just in case it doesn't work, it also gives us a couple of days to plan out how we would fire him and replace him. So we'll weigh it out. In the case of Bill O'Reilly, they made a backup plan, and it turns out it didn't blow over. It was a giant Me Too movement, and he had horribly sexually harassed so many people. They paid tens of millions of dollars in lawsuits, and there was no way to make it go away. So they're like, yeah, stay fishing, you're fired. Laura Ingraham, Tucker Carlson in the past, Sean Hannity, they're like, yeah, no, it looks like it blew over, and everybody realizes we're racist at Fox News anyway. Let's move on. You guys are back. You're back from fishing. Welcome. So right now, I guarantee you, Fox News is making a plan to fire Tucker Carlson. That doesn't mean they're going to do it. They just have a plan A and a plan B. And so it's a nice little mystery as to whether Tucker Carlson will return from his fishing trip.
There's no way they're gonna fire him over this. Like, not only is the situation very different than Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly was 123 years old. He was on his way out no matter what. Tucker Carlson is like the up and coming critical thinker, populist, all that stuff. They think that he's the future of the right or whatever. Not to mention the fact that if something was gonna get him fired, like, this is his head writer, and the things his head writer said, I think, are less all encompassing in their support for white supremacy than the normal monologues that Tucker Carlson does. He says that immigrants make America dirty, not on forums, on air. Like, diversity isn't a strength. When has it ever been a strength? That was on his show, he said that. I just think that if he was gonna go down for racism, it would have been when we found out that he was like sexualizing young girls, the Media Matters info dump that they had, or when he said that Iraqis were semi-literate primitive monkeys or something like that. Like, the idea that he would go down for Blake Neff, I find that to be impossible to imagine.
So the only reason why you might be wrong, well, look, first of all, I know I would be shocked if they weren't making a plan A and plan B. That's what corporate folks do, okay? Second of all, the reason why this might be a little bit different is, like the Me Too movement, we're now in the middle of a significant movement. And it's not just about police abuse. It's about whether Black people have real opportunities in the workplace. And it's not a matter of conscience. Of course, Fox News has no conscience. Their whole business model is built on racism and sexism and all those things, right? No, what they are now weighing with their accountants and finance guys and legal team is, how much is this gonna cost us in lawsuits? Okay, so we have Black employees, Latino employees, et cetera, et cetera. So the next time we fire them, rightly or wrongly, we're gonna get sued. And so how much are we gonna pay when a jury finds out that we put the most racist people in the world on air? And so they're gonna weigh how much that costs versus how much revenue Tucker Carlson brings in. And they called it, Fox News executives called it horrifically racist. And Tucker did not apologize. And that's another thing I know about corporate executives. They don't like that, right? If you don't bow your head, they get into a kind of a primitive, I'll show you who the boss is kind of thing. So we'll see. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just saying that they're definitely considering it.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.